Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Brainbites. This video is brought to you by your favorite host at Brainstorm Brewery, as well as all of our Patreon donors at patreon.com/brainstormbrewery. If you enjoy this video, check us out on iTunes, brainstormbrewery.com, or any other podcast app for all of the full episodes. We come out every Friday, and then we release Brainbites like this every so often, once every couple weeks. And so today's topic that I wanted to focus on for a little brief, perennial, evergreen subject are foils. As somebody who is a buyer at Grand Prix, I get a lot of questions of why won't you buy this foil? Because we get people who bring up foil Hydroid Crasises or foil standard cards, foil Gideons, foil War of the Spark Liliana, and we generally pass on them. We don't actually even offer a number. We just don't stock them. We just generally avoid pack foils like those. And so I wanted to use this video to help explain the differentiation between certain types of foils, between how certain foils move, how certain foils act, and why we don't buy them and the logistics behind it. So if you've ever stopped by our booth, or if you've ever seen me post the Twitter account for 95MTG, you'll notice that we have a hot list every GP. We have a big TV set up with a flashing red light that shows all of our hot list cards that we're buying for this weekend. And those prices are for the near mint non-foil version of the card. So a lot of the time we'll get people who see that we're paying $15 on Engineered Explosives, which is a card where TCG low is basically $15 or $16. And maybe they have a foil Ultimate Masters version of their binder and they're expecting to get a little bit more out of it. So they bring it up, they ask how much we'll pay for it, and then we just say, no, sorry, we're not buying that card. And I can show you on the screen here a little bit about why that is. So if you look at the TCG low for Engineered Explosives, it's around $15, and we probably sell the card for around $16 or $17, depending on the show. We try to be under TCG, but this is a card that we are very willing to sell very low and buy it very high to make a very, very small margin. Like when I was in Magic Fest DC this past couple weekends ago, we were buying Life from Malone at $15 and selling it for $18. That's a $3 margin on a $18 card. And so if somebody brings up a foil version of that card, we generally can't afford to offer a significantly higher number for a card that takes significantly longer to sell. So if somebody brings up a foil Engineered Explosives, there's a sort of a common belief that, oh, this foil is worth a lot more, therefore I'll get more out of it. But if you look at the TCG low for that foil Engineered Explosives, it's only around $22. So we can't afford to pay $20 on a foil Engineered Explosives where TCG low is $22, and then that card takes months to sell because most people just either prefer the non-foil, or they prefer the Masterpiece foil version, or they just prefer a very, very more obscure foil version of that card. And especially when the card, like Engineered Explosives, that card has several foil versions available, and that dilutes the demand for that any particular foil version. So Celestial Colonnade is another really good example of this, where it only had 2 foil printings before Ultimate Masters in the Worldwake foil and the Buy a Box promo for Worldwake. The Buy a Box promos we could buy because they were not significantly high enough to the point where they wouldn't move. So we could buy non-foil Worldwake copies, or we could buy foil Buy a Box promo copies because the velocity on those copies was significantly higher. Then when it got reprinted in Ultimate Masters, it actually got 2 additional foil printings, if you remember. We got the Box Topper and the Ultimate Masters foil. Again, the UMA pack foil really has a low multiplier, just partially because of the fact that so much of that product was open, and because so many of those, every one of those packs has a foil version of a card. So when every Masters pack comes with a foil, it increases the foil supply of those cards like Entomb, like Snapcaster, like Jace the Mind Sculptor. And that's one of the reasons that cards like Jace, cards like Leyline of Sanctity and the Master Set have such a low foil multiplier. And so we might be buying Celestial Colonnade for 10, selling it for 13 on site. And then if you have a foil version of the Ultimate Masters one and you bring it up, we probably won't buy it just because we can't offer, we'd basically be offering the same number, right? We'd be offering a number that allows us to make a decent enough margin that factors in the sale of the card taking significantly longer. So we could buy a non-foil for 10, sell it for 13 in 5 minutes, or we could buy a foil version for 10 and sell it for 15, but it takes 2 months. There's such a massive, massive difference in velocity of foils and the logistics of sorting them, conditioning them, and just treating them as its own individual card. So Foils, when it comes to pack foils, are just very, very hard to move. Cards like Foil Hydrate Crisis, when people don't generally foil out standard decks, they just take forever to move, so that's why we pass on those. The exceptions to these rules are things like buy a box promos, like box toppers, masterpieces. These are foils that are unique enough and stable enough and comfortable enough to purchase that we can afford to buy them. So statements like we don't buy foils as a blanket statement can be a little misleading because we don't buy certain kinds of foils. If a vendor says, sorry, we don't buy foils, they're usually still interested in things like masterpieces and cards that don't exist in non-foil. Things like Ravos Soul Tender or Nexus of Fate. Cards that just literally do not exist in foil. Kind of like Hess before Modern Horizons. So if you open a foil card, generally the best way to move it is to either list it on TCG immediately and just hope that somebody purchases it before the foil starts to trend downward. For cards like Hydroid Crisis is probably the best example, or like Liliana Dreadhorde General when the set first comes out. If you open that like big high-end foil, just undercut TCG by a pretty significant margin to convince somebody to buy it. And then otherwise you'll be stuck with it 2 months down the road when the set's fully opened, available, and then the card isn't worth as much as it was on release weekend, and you're still stuck with it because the demand is significantly less. So that's sort of our little 101 foil brain bite. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit those subscribe buttons. It's a free way to support the cast. If you're looking to support the cast financially, patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery is the best way to do so. We have a $1 tier. It's only $1 a month, what gets you access to the Discord, and then we can read questions that get submitted like these ones and answer them in a full video format that allows you to go back and check and hear our answers perennially. So check out the rest of the channel for more finance content, Magic content, and the rest of our full episodes. Thank you so much for watching. My name is DJ, and I will see you next time.